Okay, guys, we're going to get started in 1 minute. Okay, let's do it. Good afternoon, and welcome to the June 9th Oregon Tourism Commission briefing. To everyone that has joined us here in beautiful Enterprise, and to those joining through the Travel Oregon Industry YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon Industry website if you'd like to follow along. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. With that said, I'll ask each commissioner to briefly introduce themselves. But before I do, I would like to take this opportunity to give a heartfelt thank you to Elena from Eastern Oregon Visitor Association, Jennifer from Wallowa County, and Adele and her family at Six Ranch for an incredibly special evening last night. I was honored to be part of the first group to dine in the barn. It was truly unforgettable. The meal was outstanding. My deep thanks to the farmers, to the ranchers, and to everyone who played a part in making that dinner just so magical last night. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. With that said, I will introduce Commissioner Gremmels, who is joining us virtually today.
Thank you for that introduction, Lucinda. It's a great pleasure I join you. I wish I was there in person. The Wallowas is truly one of my favorite places in Oregon. And I'm envious of you all. And I do wish I could be there with you in the Wallowas. And I appreciate Eastern Oregon Visitor Center in arranging all that they have arranged for you. So I'm sorry to miss it. But I am a commissioner at large from Medford, Oregon, also founder of Rogue Creamery and creator of a new venture called Churn. I'm very much looking forward to this commission meeting. Thank you again for allowing me to join you virtually.
Thank you, Commissioner Gremmels. And next, Commissioner Pendleton.
Okay. Hi, my name is David Pendleton, owner of America's Hub Tours and Oregon Tour Expert. And yes, it's exciting to have an opportunity to come back over here today. And I would agree with you. The dinner last night was an amazing experience, and looking forward to more. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Rowe. I live in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and I own Crater Lake Zipline and Kayak Adventures. And I'm excited to be here. I'm almost ashamed to say that I've never been to this community before, but wow, super happy to make it today and yesterday, and all of the exploring that we've been doing has just floored me. So I'm just looking forward to the next day or two here, and all the hospitality is amazing, as I would expect from rural Oregon. How do you say that? Very well. But I really appreciate you guys welcoming us here, and excited to spend a little more time with you.
Good afternoon, Harish Patel. I own the Hampton Inn in Pendleton and Quality Inn in Coos Bay. Thank you.
Travis.
Good afternoon, Travis Hill. I represent the Cow Creek Umpqua Tribe, as well as I'm the CEO or COO of Umpqua Indian Development Corporation, flagship property, Seven Feathers Casino Resort. Kind of really first time kind of stopping and experiencing this region, so super excited to be here. Came in late Saturday afternoon into La Grande and had a great dinner there, and then last night was fabulous, so continued to enjoy the experience here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Scott Youngblood with Cascada Thermal Springs and Hotel in Portland, Oregon. Just so grateful to be back in Wallowa County. Thank you so much for this magical welcome and the heart that's gone into giving us the opportunity to share in this community over the 2 or 3 days that we get to spend here. One of my fondest memories of service to the commission was the last time we were here in Wallowa County, and it's been, gosh, about 6 years. Is that what we decided? I've been back several times with my family since. There is just something captivating about this part of our magnificent state, and just so honored to get to be here again. So thank you all.
And my name is Greg Willits. I built and manage Five Pine Lodge with my family, and in one of the best towns in Oregon, Sisters, Oregon. And I am so thankful I started saying one of the best because I'm here today, and this community and the communities we have visited are just magical. And every mile I drove further this direction, I was lighter, happier, and more adventurous. Thank you for welcoming us.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willits. And Todd.
All right. Thank you, Chair DeNovo. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Todd Davidson. I'm the CEO at Travel Oregon, and so much has been said about the opportunity to be here in Wallowa County, and those of you that have known me long enough, you know that, or you've heard me tell the story about when I first drove up into the valley, and I called my wife and said, I know where I'm going to retire, and I love you, so I hope you'll come with me. And it's never felt any different. Every time I drive up here, there's something really, really special about this part of Oregon for sure. I do want to take a point of personal privilege, if I could, Chair DeNovo, and just acknowledge 2 folks that are here, specifically Mason and Claire. They did not probably know, well, you didn't know I was going to do this, but they're working with us through the RARE program, if you're familiar with RARE. I love RARE. I never remember what it stands for. Resource Assistance for Rural Economies. Environments. Oh, so close. One of the 4 E's, and I got the wrong one, right? So they have been truly a gift. We've worked with RARE placements in our RDMOs for years, but have not had them internal at Travel Oregon until this year. And Claire and Mason have truly been a gift. And I've so enjoyed getting to know you and to benefit from the work that you're doing, as Oregon has benefited from the work that you've done. So thank you both for what you do.
Thank you, Todd. I'm so glad you did that. And my name is Lucinda DeNovo, Chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission and Director of Sales and Events at Coquel Casino Resort. Yes, we've changed our name. We are no longer the Mill Casino Hotel and RV Park. In celebration of our 30th anniversary, we changed our name to, I think, a name that represents the tribe much better. Again, Coquel Casino Resort. So before we begin today, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Nez Perce Wallowa Homeland Visitor Center. We had such a great opportunity this morning to learn more about the tribe. Ginger shared some information from us. She's a retired school teacher, and boy, did it show. We learned a lot, so I felt like I was back in school again. And I really want to thank Elliot and JC for taking the time to share their culture with us. We had the opportunity to visit the Longhouse, and JC had said it would feel like church, and indeed it did. I felt so honored to be in that place. So I've spent many years every summer coming to this great place, the Wallowa Lake. And so to be here now on what will be my final meeting as chair just feels really special. So thanks, team. I know this wasn't planned, but it turned out perfectly. So with that said, I know we have a big agenda today, so I'm going to turn this over to Todd.
You know, we do have a very full agenda. It's coming at you from each and every one of our departments except for admin. So Eddie, take a break. Because the other 3 are presenting today. Commissioners, I just, as a reminder, because some folks have been on this commission for several years and some are in their first term on the commission, the briefing was started, the idea of doing a briefing was begun by the commission several years ago because there was the sense that when you're together, you really wanted to spend some additional time being able to dig a little deeper on some of the programs, you know, and understanding a little bit more about the wheres and the whys than we might normally be able to in a 3-hour public meeting. And so the commission wanted this additional time, and we certainly welcome the opportunity to be able to come in and do those deeper dives for the commission, because ultimately the work we do is accountable to you. So with that, we have 3 presentations that we want to bring forward today. The first one's going to be done by Harry. So Harry, if you want to go ahead and come on up, we are looking at the guidelines for the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program that, and I don't think I'm stealing a page out of Harry's book, but while these aren't necessarily adopted by the commission, we love reviewing them with you so that you see what goes into it. You have the opportunity to ask questions about them, make sure everything is obviously clear for you as well. So Harry is our Director of Regional Based Services at Travel Oregon. And Harry, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thanks for the intro, Todd, and it's a pleasure to be here, Commissioners. Thank you. So today I have a really short presentation. It's just going to provide you context into some changes that we needed to make to the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program guidelines. As Todd stated in that primer, no formal commission action is needed regarding these guidelines changes and updates. Rather, it's just here to illustrate kind of how the overall Regional Cooperative Tourism Program is evolving and how we are working to accommodate those changes to programs. And to do that for this upcoming planning biennium, we needed to make some short-term changes so that our regional destination management organization partners are clear on how to operate and function with Travel Oregon. All right, so as I said, the RCTP guidelines really kind of function as that governing structure between Travel Oregon and our RDMO partners. And in 2023, we created a program called the Collaborative Regional Investments Program. And that program is intended to really kind of increase collaborative programming and investments between Travel Oregon and our regional partners. Fairly obvious in the name there. But the guidelines changes centers around CRI, and CRI was not allocated funding for the coming biennium. So we're here to edit that out of the guidelines and moving forward and provide that clarity to our RDMO partners that they also do not have to take 10% of their resource and set it aside for collaborative regional investments. Collaborative regional investments did move forward this biennium, and some great projects that we're very keen to share with everyone. Those projects will be winding down this fiscal, and project end reports will be due by RDMOs in September of 2025. This is the formal heads up that CRI will be removed from the guidelines for the 2025-2027 biennium. And so with all that said, we do want to get the RDMOs together and comprehensively and collaboratively look at opportunities around how to collaborate, sans CRI being in the guidelines. So that's it. Short and sweet update. CRI is not going to be included in the guidelines moving forward. And we look forward to getting all the RDMOs together in September, probably right before the commission meeting in Yachats to evaluate opportunities moving forward.
Thank you, Harry. Commissioners, before I open it for questions, I just want to take a moment to applaud both Harry and Kate for their work and really overall for their approach in working with the RDMOs. As you see up there on his last bullet, that the guidelines are going to be looked at comprehensively with RDMO partners. We don't do this in a vacuum. We want to hear from them what's working, what's not, what can we do better. There have been changes in these guidelines since they were first put in place in 2005. And so much of that has come based upon the feedback from our regional partners throughout. So to continue with that tradition and that practice is important, and it's something I know Harry and Kate are very committed to. So with that, Commissioners, I'll ask if anyone has any questions for Harry at this time.
I'll ask a question. I know regional investment is changing into something else, but whenever there's an investment, there's return of investment. So how do you gauge that, or how do you plan to do that? Yeah, so we do that a number of ways. So in terms of
closing out the biennium, we require biennium kind of in reports that close out financials, and then also kind of close out, projects and investments that RDMOs have undertook on a biennium process. So this being an additional layer, collaborative regional investments, that goes through a separate reporting process and a separate kind of closeout process. But there are a lot of really interesting and impactful investments that occurred out of that CRI investment cycle that we can come back at a later date and provide insight into the impact of the ground, how those investments went.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know you're working on a report right now from the RDMOs regarding the CRI in particular. What is the due date for that? Do you know off the top of
We're
your head?
looking. It's set in September. I'm
Okay.
not exactly familiar when the actual date is set up. That's Kate, but
Okay.
jab me there.
Just asking because our next commission meeting is the second week of September. So
Yeah.
if there's a chance to have
Yeah.
that as part of the pre-read, that'd be great. I know.
Great.
So other questions for Harry?
That was just my comment, Todd. If we can have it in September, that would be great. If not, our December meeting, I think would be our next regularly scheduled meeting. So that would be great to get an update on that.
Cool.
Thanks.
Will do.
And we could certainly distribute it to you in between meetings and field any questions that you may have. So even if it is a later date in September,
Yeah.
we can send it out as soon as we have the report.
Fair enough.
So are there any other questions or comments for Harry at this time?
Harry, hi.
Hey, Scott.
What is the cadence of work with the regional partners between now and September? What are some of the big milestones?
Well, so we just received our CTP plans and corresponding budgets for the upcoming biennium last week. So later tomorrow, you'll actually get a chance to hear from Javier and myself about how the planning cycle worked this year, like really starting with on-the-ground research originating from partners and how that research and results made it directly into investments for this upcoming biennium. So RDMOs are very much in plan review period right now, and they're looking forward to enacting and running their upcoming biennium plans at the start of July.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Todd, just last question. Harry, I, to you and the team, I can't thank you enough for your work. It's always so thorough, so incredibly thoughtful, and much like we do with everything with this organization, it's in collaboration with others. So thank you for all of your work.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a team effort for sure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
You ready, Katie? All right, commissioners, our next update for you this afternoon comes from our brand stewardship team, and it's my pleasure to turn this portion of our program over to Katie Clare, who's our Director of Brand Services at Travel Oregon, to provide us with an update on our brand advertising programs.
Are we looking good? Okay, great. There was a lot of concern if I could plug in the laptop correctly, so we're off to a great start. Hi, like Todd said, I'm Katie Clare, Director of Brand Services at Travel Oregon. So this is a little bit off script, but while I have the time, I just wanted to say a really, really big thank you to Travel Oregon and the executive team, Kevin in particular, and the entire brand stewardship team for supporting me through a maternity leave, where I was able to take the time to be with my third daughter, Cora, who I don't have favorites, but she's definitely my favorite. But it's really important for a working professional as a mom to be able to know that I can take that time to be with my family and come back into a really supportive and very, very, very supportive working and professional environment. So I just want to say a really big thank you. Kevin makes this really easy, and I'm sure he's not alone in acting like that, but it's a really big help to me. And I'm happy to be part of that team and hopefully keep passing that on to other moms. So with that, I will get into it. All right, so I thank also Mo and Jesse and Wade for letting me take a break from a commission presentation, and here we are back at it, so let's go. All right, so I wanted to take some time with you all today to talk, to reground and where we are with our paid advertising work and our brand campaigns. We're going to do a little bit of kind of just recentering, and I'm just going to talk through a few things that, and I'm sorry if this is repetitive or if you've heard these things before, but I think it's just important to really ground in how we do our work. So, you can see here, I should have updated that slide. Been a little busy and on the road, but our brand is our foundation. So our brand is at the core of what we do, that being both looks-wise, you can see that reflected around the room, but also with the tone and the point of view of how we talk. So this is as Travel Oregon, both in our advertising campaigns, but then you can also see it echo through our industry work as well. So you can see that in industry newsletter, the industry site, and others. What we really try to do on our team is to make sure our brand is recognizable and connects to consumers in a consistent way. So when they see something from Travel Oregon and Market, they have an understanding and know who we are. This is very hard to see. I knew that coming into it. It was told to me many times, but here we are. So I can send it to you and I will promise to re-update the colors. So in February, you had the presentation where we were talking about our brand playbook. That brand playbook is how we take our brand and connect it to consumers. What's that point of view? How is the work that we're making having that, we call it the tip of the spear that lets us have a presence in market and have advertising campaigns. So if you go down in the green directions, our brand playbook influences those advertising campaigns. It lets us, when we brief in a creative team that helps us get something fresh and new in market, it comes from that essence and that point of view of our brand playbook. And I'm sorry if this is very confusing, but I can tell you this on a daily basis until everybody is on the same page. If you go up the slide, you see our brand identity. So brand identity is visually what you see from Travel Oregon. It's going to be how you have consistent fonts, how you have, when you see our website or our industry website, if you see a one-pager or if you go to any of our in-community events, you'll know it's a Travel Oregon event. So there's kind of two things that go from that brand identity. And our team on the brand services, brand stewardship and brand services team, we really focus on that brand playbook, which is how do we take this to consumers? And so that's what you saw in February and what we're working on still. All of our paid advertising gives our brand exposure. So my favorite thing is the Field of Dream reference. If you build it, they won't come unless you pay for it. So you have to do that. And how we do that is through these paid advertising campaigns. So we're in market 365 days a year. And right now, what my team is doing is we're briefing in our advertising agencies and our partners at Wieden & Kennedy, Logical Position, and Sparkloft for what is our paid media strategy for the next year, which is what we'll talk about today. We're partly also able to do this because we just finished our advertising agency RFP, and we had 17 extremely strong applications. And after a really difficult to decide, because there's so many great ones, especially some really great Oregon advertising agencies, we had a really competitive and strong application from Wieden & Kennedy, and we've recently awarded to them and are in the contracting phase with them. So Eddie is part of every presentation at Travel Oregon. So we're in the briefing for our paid media direction and our campaign direction, which I'll get to, but just wanted to, again, just kind of grounding us in what we're doing here. Most recently, this paid advertising direction was with Travel Oregon. And what we talk about is that all of our paid efforts drive to Travel Oregon owned or influenced channels. And so I'll keep going through this and we'll see if I made the improvements to the slide to make this much more understandable. But when we say influenced channels, that's going to be something that Travel Oregon has had the ability to craft the copy or the imagery or something like that, so that we're able to say, hey, we want people to go here. Otherwise, they're driving to one of TravelOregon.com, our e-newsletter, our social media channels, or our visitor guide. We want to be able to craft that journey with them in some way after they see our paid advertising. We'll see if this works for everybody. Okay, so our paid ads is the dark blue at the top. They're either a brand awareness ad that's driving awareness or association of Travel Oregon as a resource, or that's what's an action ad, a traffic ad, that's driving a click, a booking, or a subscribe. And all of that advertising goes to either an owned content channel or an influenced channel. And so we'll make sure that we have this, and I continue to improve this graphic. but we're working on how we're continuing to explain all these things. But what we're really doing with all of our paid advertising throughout the entire year is how are we getting people to take action to book that trip and stay in that funnel so that we can continue to have that conversation. Okay, so that's what we do. And then where have we been? So like I said, so in 2023, we launched our advertising campaign, Travel Oregon with Travel Oregon. Why that was important was that was our first advertising campaign that we launched since after we promoted our 10-year strategic vision. And so when we had that 10-year strategic vision, we used that to brief in our advertising agency partners, like all of our advertising partners. And what we realized was in order to achieve our 10-year strategic vision, we developed this campaign that it allowed us to be flexible. We had to be able at different times to focus on the different of the 4 E's, the economy, equity, environment, and experiences. So this allowed us to do something that had always been central, as we were able to optimize instead of maximizing our advertising. So it's like we needed to have the different levers. And so how we went to do that is that we created this campaign. And we liked this Travel Oregon with Travel Oregon because it had a couple things that were really fundamental to it. It was flexible, recognizable, it was nimble, and scalable. And so at different times, we had paid advertising with White & Kennedy that was in market. At other seasons, we had just paid advertising on online travel agencies and with our native advertising partners, which really was focused on traffic ads. At different times of year, we also just had social media ads in market that were reels that were able to support specific bookable experiences. So we're able to do a lot, and you'll hear me like saying levers and looking like I'm physically pulling levers because that's really what it has been. And this last year was continuing to just go through. We had our platform, which is the Travel Oregon and Travel Oregon. That was kind of the hero effort. And that really positioned Oregon as an indispensable resource by guiding travelers through our Northwest Wonderland. That creative approach is how we had that filter. So that's the creative. That's how we have creative in market. And it all had a connection to that brand identity in that campaign. So if you'll remember with me, in summer we had Try Something Portland, where we had that creative in market, the beautiful Han Oak. We had forest bathing with Forest Park. The sports bra creative, it was really great. We rolled into the fall with Plaisance Ranch. If you remember he lassoed Sustainable. I remember. Then we had, in the winter, we focused a lot on booking, and we also continued to push Portland with having additional Portland creative in market. And then in the spring, we were able to launch like the beautiful Oregon Adaptive Sports for the mountain biking in Central Oregon, along with the Fort George Creative on the Coast. So we were able to show responsible recreation, accessibility. We had locations that were on the food trails to focusing on Portland with the booking. So we had quite a different number of levers, and that doesn't even really touch on any of the social media content that we produced. So there's a lot that's been going on. And it's been great. It's been really fun to navigate and bring everything together. So what did we do? This is kind of the summary of it. But if you'll remember, I also had Wade McCarthy from my team that helped walk through our audience and how we were targeting when we were in Central Oregon. It's all kind of a blur last trimester. So what we talked about and what we worked on this year is also, we had a pretty similar paid media budget year over year, but we really looked at our audiences and how we were targeting with this campaign as well. So all this paid advertising that we had over the past years resulted in a couple things, but one of the things that we're really excited about is that because we focused on reach and traffic in specific channels, we were able to have our reach increased, even though we had really similar budgets, and we were navigating through the loss of organic traffic due to what you saw with the presentation with Mo and Jesse and Wade with AI and some search things that we can talk about too. But a couple of key highlights. So you can see here on the slide, I'll just go through this and I'll add some narrative to it as well, but we had over 120 million video completes, which is up 35% year over year. From that, we were able to drive 857,000 site sessions from those videos. So that's directly associated with that paid advertising. You can see on social media, this is just sharing the reach that we had, is that we had over 256 million impressions on those videos on social. But this is where we're starting to see some things that we know the strategy and the optimizations that the team is working on is really making a difference. Is that we had a 24% increase in visitor guide distribution year over year, and that's something that we were focusing on, how we were talking like our ads drove towards that action. And then you can also see here, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but our eNews subscribers is up 4.5% year over year, which is always, that metric is something that we work on all the time. So seeing an increase is really exciting for the team. And then we have two metrics that I'm going to push and tie to our always on advertising. So this was creative that's not in a Travel Oregon creative, but was within our brand creative, which is, we call it our evergreen. I was supposed to have a graphic. I've been really busy and on the road. I was at Jennifer's place last week, but I'm working on a graphic that's going to make this super clear. But our evergreen and always on work was able to drive over 2.6 million impressions. So we had a paid advertising strategy that was behind ads that were in market all the time. We were able to drive, Wade really wanted me to say this, over 1.6 billion impressions. He was very excited about billion. And then most of all, we had on OTAs, which I know we've talked about, but it has over 44 million impressions that we were able to deliver across a wide variety of online travel agency partners with a return on ad spend of $101 to 1. So the other things here that are really in the weeds, and happy to go into any of this at the end with questions, but we focused on our video distribution of how are we looking at our green markets that are the most familiar, like Oregon, Washington. We really focused on conversion in those markets. And then we had, as we went to orange markets, were those that were close but not as familiar. I think Northern California, Idaho, heading into Nevada. And then we went further, which were our blue markets. Sorry, I'm trying to get this right. So we had this strategy of different creative target at different places. Because of how we were able to look at the geographic area with the types of ads, we had year-over-year increases of 38% increase from California, 122% increase from Nevada, 150% increase from Colorado, and 107% increase from Arizona in site traffic. And new users, not site traffic, on new users on TravelOregon.com. And so those are the things that we continue to look at is how are we driving action with our ads within our markets. And so we have, that was a goal of looking at how can we even out the balance of influencing visitors and getting more awareness of the Travel Oregon brand. From paid advertising, this is the other big one. So as you know, we're navigating overall site traffic as we see changes in Google search and just different ways that people experience travel research. But from paid advertising, we exceeded last year by 11%. So we're seeing increases in our paid advertising that's driving site traffic, even if our overall site traffic is down. So those are the things, again, that we keep seeing. How can we influence from these ads? And I'm just gonna, and then our advertising spend is we're down again this year. We're $101.95 to every dollar that we spent versus last year we're 130 to 1. So we're being more impactful. We're not being more impactful, but we are looking at we're looking for like how we're looking at awareness and inspiration on our online travel agency partners versus that booking, and we're finding that happy medium. So these are all things that we're looking at and tracking just the differences year over year. So that's what we were able to do with Travel Oregon in a nutshell. I have a lot more results in a lot different, bigger Excel sheets if anybody wants to get real nerdy after this. Okay, so what's next? So that's done. We wrapped up all of our paid ads 2 weeks ago. We have some always on the market. So what's next? We have to keep moving. All right, so we talked about this. So we made some big shifts. So we went from before Travel Oregon and Travel Oregon to now we went from 1 to 2 pulses a year to always on. And this was done really intentionally to accommodate all the different needs that we have within our strategic vision. We can hear from partners, as you all are very aware, there's lots of different needs across the state. And so we landed on the creative platform Travel Oregon and Travel Oregon. So we really focused on this to be able to let us lean into that role as a guide and to do so many different things. And this is a tricky slide, but just want to share. It's complicated. And what we were really looking to do as we went into this is we're trying to do so much. So how can we lean into what we do best with each partner? And so as we briefed in for this year going into the new biennium with our new fiscal budgets, we're balancing a couple of things that we'll go over on the next slide. But what we also wanted to do is to step back and go, are we having our partners do what they do best to allow us to be as efficient with time and resources as possible, which is always the goal. So what are we facing? So we're looking at our situation and ourselves as Travel Oregon and the industry. And we're looking at our agency partners, which are world-class. They're top of the top. And instead of trying us to get every partner to do everything, we're asking them to be more specific. And this will allow us to really focus on a couple things that we're navigating. And so we're looking at some challenging returns to numbers, especially Portland, as we've continued to talk about. How are we continuing to support this area? We're looking at year-over-year impacts, and this is just looking at media budgets and production budgets that are pretty level year over year. We're not having really big increases, so we'll need to be as efficient as possible. We're also doing some just reflection on, we have a need for large brand awareness. We need to drive that for Travel Oregon as a resource. We also have a lot of needs, as you are very aware statewide, of niche and product specific marketing. So we need to be able to have these large moments, but we need to be able to be nimble enough to speak to specific businesses or specific product that's in market at different times. The web traffic is a really big impact. Part of what I talk about with the team is that our job at Travel Oregon isn't just to drive traffic to traveloregon.com, even though we know, and I have this statistic up here, I was supposed to say it earlier, we know that we can influence at a really high multiplier a longer trip where people spend more if they come to traveloregon.com. It's always going to be a priority for us. But our ultimate goal is to inspire travel around Oregon. That's in line with values that we have at Travel Oregon. That's statewide, that's driving that economic impact. And so how are we creating and advertising in a world where it's harder and harder to drive traffic to traveloregon.com? We need to figure that out. We need to adjust because we're not going to change Google. We need to go with it. So we're navigating that. And then the youth are starting to travel more, and they don't go to traveloregon.com as much as others. But that's why we're on TikTok and we're creating reels. And we're also just navigating different ways that people book and experience their overnight stays. So we started last July. We took a step back and really had a large conversation with our lead agency, Wieden & Kennedy, and we said, hey, are we doing the best that we can with Travel Oregon and Travel Oregon, and are we going to continue to drive the results that we need statewide that allow us to do these things? And so we started that conversation, and you saw some of the outcomes from that work for the briefing that happened in February. We were looking at our brand playbook. That is still ongoing, and we're probably missing being able to share some really incredible creative with you by about a day or so. But real soon, we're going to have some beautiful work that allows us to represent the needs of the industry and Oregon really well. But we are currently briefing on the following. So for the next biennium, heading in starting July 1, we're going to have a media budget of $11.6 million. What we're looking at is that we're going to have $5 million of this is going towards our always on paid media. And I do have a chart on the next slide where I'll keep saying this in different ways. And then this is over the biennium. So this is a budget spread out over 2 years for each of these. So then we have $6.6 million for our brand campaign. This is going to, I'm going to speak to that more in a minute. For production, over the biennium, across all partners, we have $3 million for a production. And then I have on here just one strategic vision KPI, but what we're allowed to do is we focus on the economic impact KPIs, but we are able to support through the product and the niches that we bring through our campaign. We're able to support pretty much all of the KPIs within our strategic vision. And so that's always our balance, is how are we making sure that we have a clear goal that we can brief in partners to, because if you can't brief with a strong perspective, then it's really challenging. And then our team works really hard to bring through and deliver on the other KPIs within the strategic vision. Our Always On paid campaign is going to be starting July 1 through June 30th. So we are currently working on work back calendars to have in market with our Always On partners. And I'll go into that in just a second, what those partners are. And then we're looking at our brand advertising campaign, a big moment in market that leans into our partners doing what they do best when they do it best next spring. Our goals. So for the Always On paid partners, this is going to be working with online travel agencies, social media, search, like your Googles, Microsoft, your display, YouTube partners, our native advertising partners. Those are those ads that like you see when you're on the New York Times and it looks like it's part of the article. We have a lot of really strong return with those. That's going to be on all year. Instead of having different campaign moments that we're trying to push through those channels, and the biggest shift here is with social media, we're going to just have our Travel Oregon creative in market at all times. This is going to allow us to be really flexible. And again, I have slides in a second, but this will allow us to support many different niches and programs on a consistent basis year round. So then we're able, when we need to have that strong brand awareness that's driving economic return, we can just have big, beautiful, clear creative and market that is inspiring. And I'm really excited about that. It should be really fun. So then the brand campaigns, again, are focusing on that large awareness and overnight bookings. So again, these are not the fanciest slides, but really trying to just kind of convey this. So the two right now, if we have campaigns that have a budget that's on top of what we're doing, on top of the slides that I just showed, I included it. So right now that's Wheel of the World, and you're going to get the full presentation on that in September, and that campaign is going to be gorgeous, and I can talk more about that after my presentation. But we're we're going to have paid effort behind the Wheel of the World project in market from August to October or so, and we're actually on the ground in production right now for that. It's a 25-day production. It's looking really good. It's just really long too. Then we're going to have our brand campaign in market next spring. So that's going to be a big hero moment in market. But the rest of the year, we have a real key focus on these always on advertising channels. So we'll have always on advertising, like I said, with native, search, online travel agencies. And then for the first time, we're not going to have, you'll see our campaigns on social, of course, but we're focusing the majority of our budget for paid social media to be always on. So this way we can just consistently have that in the click ads and the awareness on Reels and different things in market. And on Pinterest. Okay, this is for placement only. This is like the top line of what we focus on. Like this is just an example of what we can do with Always On. So for Always On, what we're balancing is we have a core seasonal content. So if you're looking at any of our channels that you're seeing like on Google or Facebook or anything that you see advertising, we have 2 pulses for each season. So we have summer 1 and summer 2, and we rotate that out across all platforms throughout the whole year. So this is like at the core, so we can make sure when people are looking for Oregon or they're getting inspiration for Oregon, they're seeing beautiful fall foliage. They're seeing those great hero shots of the farm dinners out in a beautiful valley. You're seeing wine country. You're seeing ski and snow in winter. We want to make sure that we're hitting people consistently with those beauty shots of Oregon that we know as natural beauty, such a strong driver, we know what it was able to deliver in return. We're also able and balance within the seasonal content layer of always on marketing with the creative, we balance regional equity as well. So we're able to, we look at the whole year of are we making sure that we get all regions when we need to. Then what we can also do through these ads and what we have done before is we can support all the different niches. A great example of this is food trails. We're able to, through a partnership with the Destinations Stewardship Team, we're able to focus on driving traffic around the food trails content to the food trails pages. We're able to have updated information on traveloregon.com, but through these channels that we had these paid relationships with anyways, we were able to rotate in that creative and drive to those URLs that have been updated. What we're also doing, and I know that I'm trying to remember which time, in April, we're looking at how are we optimizing TravelOregon.com to be as efficient and speedy as possible, because that's something that we know that we have to be the best prospect for Google as possible as changes in traffic are happening. And so before each campaign that we have, not campaign, I'm trying to limit language. Before we push to any specific page on TravelOregon.com, we're working with Jesse and Mo to ensure that the page responds as quickly as possible. There's site speed pages. There's all these details that go into making sure that this experience is as good as possible so that we can be as efficient. Because if we stop becoming the best answer for Google, they'll stop looking at our site, and we need to make sure that we keep pushing those things to the top. This is the same for Microsoft as well. So it's a balance of site speed, the working cross-functionally to make sure that we have the best content as possible and serving up those industry needs. This will all happen throughout the whole year through those always-on paid media channels. And so, like, this is just an example, so please, if you don't see exactly what you want on here, it's probably going to be there. We're going to have over probably 50 ads running at any time. And so we're balancing quite a bit of different information that we're pushing towards. So this is kind of the top line in a nutshell view of what we're doing. And we're just getting ready for July 1. And we're trying to get ready before July 1 because everybody wants to take the 4th of July off. Not everybody, but we want to be respectful of that time. So we are working on that, and we're going to keep having really cool things to show you. But thank you, and now I'm ready for questions.
Since we're only a day or two away from this really cool new creative, maybe we'll just lay over in Wallowa County for a couple of days, and you can have it shipped out, and we can wait for it.
Okay, great. Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. Commissioners, do you have questions?
Well, first, I want to say thank you. That was a lot of content to give us. And I know you kept referencing it wasn't very glamorous, but I think what it was the numbers, and those numbers were impressive. And so I really want to say thank you for this presentation. And always what I so appreciate about this organization is we're always looking, even though we could say we're a success, we're like, there's still more that we can be done. And we're still looking at those budgets, and we're still making those shifts. And, you know, the Always On campaign is going to look a little bit different this year, and we're going to strategize and, you know, dive even further into it. So thank you, first and foremost. I also was going to ask about the mascots. Can you remind me?
Sidekicks.
Yes, read the sidekicks. Can you remind me what the strategy behind that was when we introduced those? If I remember correctly, I thought it was a more memorable campaign, so it might drive more visitation, but you're going to do a better job than I am explaining that, Katie.
Yes, you're looking for the terminology repeatable construct. Yeah, so what we did with those and what we were trying to do is when we briefed in Travel Oregon, we were trying to solve the entirety of the strategic vision with one advertising campaign. And we did a number of things at that time, which was changing when we and how we were in market, changing like we needed to be in market all the time. And we were also trying to create this umbrella of campaign structure that would allow us to have different pieces of creative and market at the different times and have the same callback within the campaign. And it was like, how do you do that without doing the same production all the time? And we have Wine and Kennedy, which does our really large brand campaigns. We have Sparkloft, who does our social media production. And so because we had different partners, it was like, what is the tools that we could use that would allow us to make that creative? And so that's where the sidekicks came from, is that it was this idea of they could launch with production from one advertising agency partner, and then they could be brought through on the website, through social channels, and their characters would develop into different things that would allow brand affiliation. And like if we had sustainable, that would be much more for responsible recreation and like different things like that. And then you had Kayak Yak, who would be with water activities, and you had Boots, which would be for hiking or things like that. And that was the intention. And so then it was looking at the execution of that, of how much of this balance is campaign development and support on traveloregon.com and also with production. And then how much is it balancing with what do we normally do as well? And I think that's what we were looking at, is where's that balance between the right mix of brand creative and production that's always on, and when do we need to have those campaign hero moments? And that's part of the reflection that we had of, we need to have, instead of trying to get Wieden and Kennedy and the brand awareness to focus on trying to be a nimble campaign in market all the time, they're really great at big, beautiful hero moments in driving brand awareness. And our social media partners are really good at doing production that shows that that step down the funnel, that conversion, that here's your experience in Wallowa County, here's how you go kayaking, why can't I think of it? The glowing night kayak. What? Yeah. It's like they're able to produce reels that go viral with things like that, right? So we need to do, like, having each one of those production partners do what they do best. And that's what this is a reflection of, is stepping back and being like, we need to step back from the sidekicks so that we can be as efficient as possible in that space. But that's where they came from.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If you would like to have one, I think we also own them as well. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You'll be an Adopt a Sidekick program later. Other questions for Katie? David?
Hello, Katie.
Hello.
You know, it's always a pleasure having you
See you.
present here. You're always prepared, very informative. So I only have 2 questions for you,
Great.
okay? And they're easy ones, at least one. First, I love the fact on what's next you said. You know, we have to adjust and be adaptable, which is great. But, you know, when you touched on that, the always-on piece, and you said from a budget perspective, $5 million. My question is whether or not that's sufficient to do what you need to do, because I'm looking at like the online agency, and just recently within the last 30, 45 days, they're all raising their prices up. And so I think that's an area we need to look at, because it's an important piece. And the second question I have for you, I don't know if this is for you or Todd, but Wieden Kennedy has done some amazing work for Travel Oregon and Travel Portland. I was very pleased on one project they worked on in Japan, where they actually worked with a lot of the local businesses there to do the work that needed to be done. You mentioned that there were 17 RFQ apps. And-
RFPM.
Yeah, and so I'm just wondering, and I'm sure it's there, but just help me here. Is there any guidelines or policies, what have you, that from a DEI perspective, that we award so much to Wieden Kennedy, but I think it would help, and I know they do this, but it would help if we can see, or at least call out those other partners they're working with, because, you know, they're such a big agency and they do such great work, but I do know they have worked in the past with some of the smaller agencies, and so I would like to just get a feel to see what that connection is, because
I'm going to lean in for just a quick
Yeah.
second, Katie, if I may, because I thought your question was going one way, David, and I think I landed in a different place at the end. What I believe I hear you asking is, Wieden & Kennedy as an agency obviously brings their DEI lens to our work. And we've used focus groups, affinity groups within Wieden & Kennedy to help inform some of our work. But they also work with a number of smaller businesses and subcontractors that could also be bringing a DEI lens to the work as well. And you're curious to know who some of those subcontractors are that they work with?
I would definitely like to hear more what they're doing in that area, because it really supports one key component of the DEI piece.
Yeah.
I'd like to, and I said earlier, I know they do it because I worked with them, or at least through Travel Portland. I've seen them, and they reported and shared that data with us. I think that would be very important for this commission and the industry as a whole as well.
Thank you, David, for the clarification. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Katie, or at this time.
No, I think, to both of your questions, For the one about Wyden, yes, absolutely. I can get you, I have something I can say now, but I'll also just get you a really well-rounded response to that because I hear what you're saying and we have the information. And it's really cool. So we've done some cool stuff with them, but there's also stuff that they do on their own. So yes, we can work on that. And then, for the always on budgets, that's something like this is what we're proposing and briefing in right now. We're going to continue. What's nice is that we have the budget set, but we can continue to optimize. And if we find that this isn't work, like we need to shift, we can shift. And so we'll keep you updated on that. That's something that we watch really closely. Are we able to drive the returns that we want? That you'll see that continually to be updated here. And if anything specific comes up, we'll make sure to share that out through the like weekly updates. But I hear what you're saying for sure. And we're keeping an eye on them. Yeah.
Commissioners, Parish.
You just said you can shift. Where would we shift it from within? Where would you shift it from if needed?
We would start by looking at that balance of between the brand advertising campaign and the always on campaign. That would probably be the first area where we would shift to say, do we need to redistribute these budgets between these different advertising efforts? And then if we found that we need to adjust our paid media budget, then that's where Kevin would come in. And he would probably talk to Todd about that at an exec team meeting or something, but that's where we would shift it. Is at first, we always look at our paid media budgets first. We look at our production budgets as well as looking at how are we spending that amount of money. And then we would, if there was a need, we would look at that as an agency.
And I have a question on OTAs. Most lodging operators and even large franchise companies, their long-term goal is to shift business away from OTA. Does Travel Oregon have something? Because they call us partners, we don't call them partners.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, so I want to make sure I get this right of what we looked at when we reviewed how we spend money with our online travel agencies. One of our things that we really look at is to make sure that we're spending efficiently on those platforms. There's some part of it that's fishing where the fish are to make sure we're doing conquest targeting and pushing to Oregon, but also not overspending on those platforms. So it's that balance. And so let me work with Wade and make sure that we're really looking at those platforms and being efficient and make sure that we have the information that we need about online travel agencies.
Okay.
I'm up? No. Katie, good to have you back. Great information. You'd mentioned in one of your slides there, there's a brief mention of AI. Just kind of maybe expand on how you're utilizing that or what you're looking at ahead. And then also, you'd mentioned youth traveling more. What is that age demographic and what's kind of the focus there?
Yeah, so we're, for AI, how we're really looking at that, and I will reference back to what Wade and Mo and Jesse shared on, which is really how we're keeping an eye on and tracking how advancements in AI is impacting search and how people are ingesting content and also how content is being produced on site. So that's the biggest thing that's impacting our business right now is how AI responses are impacting search and traffic to site. Like we're seeing double-digit drops in traffic in some areas where people are just getting that information served up to them, like the Google summaries that you get now. Yeah. It's just really decreasing how people go to websites. The other thing is how are we using AI to make sure that we're updating TravelOregon.com or others? And so we're using it on TravelOregon.com currently for some responses, but also I think that's kind of like what we're doing currently. It's really just making sure that we're as up to date as possible with platform impacts. Michael and I are on a monthly program with Miles where they have like an hour-and-a-half update. Mo's really taking the lead on this for the team, which is really great. And then he works really closely with Wade and Jesse for the site traffic, which is why I keep saying their names over and over again with this. But that's really the two areas where we're focusing on implementing and learning from it. And then the biggest thing is just staying on top of it, like what's coming down the pipe. And if we need to optimize any of our content, that's one thing that we're really looking at is how is it being really useful to be served up as well. Because if we can't drive people to TravelOregon.com, we still want to make sure that we're helping influence that behavior.
Makes sense, yeah. And then youth?
That's really looking at the traffic and search patterns of about 34 and under of as people are as we see Gen Z and different generations coming up and patterns shifting a little bit. Like, I don't know if you all saw, like, there's a big thing in the New York Times over the weekend that Gen Z likes to close up their tab after every drink, and it's really annoying to bartenders. But it's like, what are the little pattern behaviors that we can start identifying? And if we can do anything to make Travel Oregon as attractive as possible in response to small travel behaviors or small indices like that, like, what are we doing on our channels, especially across social?
Thank you.
Other questions for Katie? Scott?
Katie, I thought that all I had learned from reading the New York Times recently was the importance of drinking mushroom coffee, but you're telling me that those are embedded ads that are meant to look like. Okay, I think I'm finally picking up what it is you do. I waited to ask the question because I honestly didn't want to be the one to ask it, but you made mention of the 23-25 biennium emphasis on the Portland region and the importance of the Portland region. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the relevance of that going forward into the 25-27 biennium, but not before I make an excuse for myself. So my excuse is this. I've been doing this a long time. My time having the joy of serving on this commission represents about a third of my adult life interacting and working with really great destination marketing and now management organizations. And so in my time here, I've really guarded against and lectured against any instinct that we as a commission might have about being provincial. I didn't want to be the voice of the Portland region because, as everyone knows here, I live in the Portland region, and I don't want it to come across that way. I don't want to be the guy that says, as has been the case in past lives, hotels generate the revenue, therefore your only job as a destination marketing organization is to feed hotel occupancy, because that is not our mission. Our mission lives in service to our 10-year strategic plan, and our roles and responsibilities are not provincial as it relates to our specific geography, our specific professional discipline. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying I didn't want to be the guy to ask about Portland for fear of the appearance of selfish or ulterior motive. But I have such a profound belief in the importance of Portland as our state's gateway, and in particular the gateway that represents for international travel. And I think that there are contrarian opportunities when international travel is down and other destinations are turning away from international travel. That typically takes commodity pricing down, and that may be an opportunity for us to lead in. David, your brilliant commentary about the importance and the significance of the campaign in Japan a few years ago. I think that there is a lot that we can and should be doing relative to driving tourism to and through Portland and across Oregon. And I was hoping for your thoughts on that. And I apologize for sharing far too many of my own.
No, it's all important and relevant to what we're doing. And so I think two things that to just let you know is that Portland will continue to be a very important part of how we consider and implement our paid advertising. The recovery of Portland, not only in occupancy, but also ADR, is going to be a foundational recovery step for the entire state. We really believe that helps. We know that helps the whole state. And so that's very important. And that's something that we are tracking and making sure that we're bringing into our work through the appropriate channels as much as we can. Kevin and I meet often with the Travel Portland team, and we will continue to offer as much and complete support of their team as possible. So that's constantly what we're considering. And that's going to be brought through our work, and we'll see how that, where that comes in exactly over the next year. But that's something that we're considering. And to the international comment, that's something that we're working closely with Greg Eckhart and making sure that we're making the right moves at the right time. The international market, specifically Canada, is going to continue to be super important. So we're watching the impacts that we're experiencing and also figuring out when is the time. Do we need to have an at-par campaign in market? How are we reaching out to those that and making sure that they know that we care about them? Greg and the entire sales team and many industry partners are at IPW this week, along with Julia Amato, with reaching out to media. And so it's even at that, I know there's a lot of effort with special care that is being shown to those international partners of, we in Oregon really care about you and we want you to come visit. So not full answers to those, but yes, they're very much considerations that we have through our work.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jen?
Hi. Hello. Nice to see you again. So you had said something, well, first of all, actually, you said something about levers, and the thing that came to mind, and I think it's highly appropriate, is that it kind of seemed like the Wizard of Oz behind the screen, like, making all this magic happen. And so thank you for that. I really appreciate your whole team doing that. But you said something about there was a shift from $130 return. Maybe I misunderstood what you said, but down to 101.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that and help me understand
and let me-
how critical that is?
It's expected. We're tracking it. It's not something that we're concerned about, but it's also something it's also how we're evaluating those budgets that we spend on online travel agencies. Like, what are we trying to do on each of those platforms? Like, TripAdvisor's become much more inspiration and awareness versus if we're on Bookings, that's much more Expedia. We're just looking at those. So it was our return on ad spend is lower this year than it was last year, but it was with half of the spend. So we decreased that spend on our online travel agencies by half. And so we're more efficient with less dollars, but if you look year over year, it's down. And so that's why we're seeing that, but it's also expected.
Okay. Also, along the lines of what you were asking, Harish, but help me understand with the OTAs, I don't understand the relationship for how you as an agency advertise on the OTAs. What's the goal on the OTAs? Just so I can lock in my brain, because if I were advertising on an OTA, it would be very different than what you're probably looking to do.
Our primary goals when we're on online travel agencies is driving towards easy to book Oregon experiences. So it's really what we're doing is a couple of things. Is we know how much traffic, and we work with our partners. There's a lot of traffic that goes to online travel agencies within a week. It's someone looking to make a quick booking. They're looking for an efficient price in an area. That's making Oregon easy to find, making hotel properties easy to find. Part of our goal is truly just helping with site navigation of make this as easy as possible for the consumer when they're searching. Then there's a portion as well on different platforms, and we're narrowing down which ones we use. We're probably just going to be on one partner over the next year for booking, and that's because when you're trying to drive what we call an influenceable experience when someone's on an online travel agency, you have about a 4 to 6 week booking window. That's you're booking 4 to 6 weeks out if you're booking on an online travel agency and you don't already know where you're going. That's where we come in with conquest marketing. So if people are like Idaho or something, we're or Oregon, so come here. And then we're also looking at how are we serving up additional experiences beyond just hotels. So that's where you'll see on some pages there's additional information about come to Oregon and did you know this is only an hour away from Portland, or that's where we can start putting in some additional information. And so we are paying for building out those page design to serve up different experiences. So it's not just pushing a hotel or an easy booking, but really kind of looking at how are we influencing that site design and that experience that people have. And then it's also TripAdvisor's in the past few years, we've really just focused, they're more of the inspiration level, so they're not driving any bookings really. And so what we're doing there is we're just trying to have really inspirational itineraries. There's some places where I'm give them the glory shots. Let's have the coast at sunset. Let's have Pittock Mansion in Portland. Let's give the glory shots and really just drive inspiration. It's really turning into that zone for TripAdvisor.
Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
as all of that starts to shift, I just wonder too, then how do you connect with the RDMOs, or do you, in helping them understand how to shift as well?
All
And
of
that
our,
may be a
yeah, no, that's a good
separate
question.
conversation.
Yeah, and that's part of what we're really working on as a team too. Is we're a year into having Carrie Behe, who's our destination marketing manager, who's really focusing more on connecting marketing with the industry. That's what her role is designed to do. And then also Wade, who's our paid media manager. And so being a year into having those two positions on board is giving us the capacity to be able to expand this knowledge and create better systems. And so like coming off of boot camp, for instance, like Destination Boot Camp, we're talking like one of their goals is going to be creating like an educational program where we can share marketing updates on a monthly basis, the same that Mo, Michael, and I are receiving from Miles. Like, so I think there's just a lot of opportunity there, and we haven't had the capacity to do it. But I think especially it's like seeing how much is changing even just in the last 6 months in paid advertising. It's really necessary for us to keep sharing what we know and building those connections and making it easy, because there's super limited capacity for them as well.
Well, I mean, easy might be a stretch, but
Right.
yeah.
We're going to put it out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Any other questions? All right, Katie, thank you. Great job. Commissioners, our third presentation today could have been titled like Global Media Meets Oregon. Under the leadership of our communications team and Julia Amato, who's joining us, who's our Director of Communication, and in very, very close collaboration and tremendous support from all of our RDMO partners and other partners here in the state, we were able to bring together a highly impactful experience for journalists from literally from around the world. And Julia is bringing us an update on that and some of our initial findings so far. So Julia, thanks for joining us virtually. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think Allied is, oh, there we go. I was going to say, I think Allied's in charge of my presentation here. So hello, commissioners. Hello, Todd. Good afternoon. Sorry I couldn't join in person. It's a busy week. Katie mentioned I'm getting ready to head to IPW in Chicago, and my first grader is wrapping up first grade on Thursday. So it's a busy week for me. Thank you for having me. And as Todd mentioned, this was a very much a collective effort. I am honored to share the recap, but would be remiss if I didn't shout out Allison Keeney on my team, Elena Vizzini, who is now officially rejoined Travel Oregon as our international communications manager, but was critical in this in her contract role, helping build out itineraries and of course our PR agency, Lawrence PR. And Yvette Mata, our new coordinator. So truly a team effort, and the regions, all 7 regions, this and our partners, it would not have happened without them. So I'm very, very thankful for partnership. And as I said, an honor to get to share this with y'all. So before I dive into a recap of the event, I wanted to level set and just share, what is the Oregon Media Marketplace? You may have heard, you may have not have heard of it. So it is a day-long event. It's a biannual event. So this happens every 2 years, and this was Travel Oregon's 3rd year doing it. I joined just over a year ago, and it was brought to my attention as soon as I joined. And it's a big event that we put on. This year it was held March 18th at the Red. It's an event designed for media, with the intention of showcasing all that we have to offer here in Oregon and inspire future stories from the media that attend. It's also tangentially an opportunity for industry partners to develop relationships with those media in the room, but also with each other. There's not a lot of times where PR folks that are either working with regions or working with some of the lodging partners or restaurant partners, industry partners far and wide, we don't often get to be together. So we are emailing all the time and putting itineraries together and sharing, pitches and stuff. But for us all to be together in the same room doesn't happen. So we really wanted the marketplace serves that goal of being for the media, but also being an opportunity for folks to network. You can go to the next slide, please. So this year, as I said, this is the third year Travel Oregon has done it. And as I said, a year ago, it was brought to my attention that this was going to be something we needed to start planning for. And when I kind of saw the past 2 years, it was really focused on including Portland-based writers. So they might not only cover write for local outlets, they may be Portland-based and write for national outlets, but it was really geared to those local folks. And there wasn't necessarily like everybody, all the RDMOs participated. I think the last year, 5 of the 7 participated, and it was more of just a come, hang out. We're going to bring some media together and more of a networking meetup type event. So this year, we really reimagined it. I had the mindset of, well, if we're going to put this effort in to bring people together, why don't we include more people? And Petra, thankfully trusted me in this idea and supported it and said, yeah, let's make it bigger. And so this year we moved from just those local writers to inviting national media and international media, bringing people in from all over. We wanted, because we were making that investment to bring media in, we really wanted to make sure every region was represented, because we wanted the people to come into a space and have them feel like they were experiencing all the different parts of Oregon. So with that, we covered the costs other than the activation costs. So RDMOs, for them to participate, they just had to pay for the cost of their booth space, but we had the event space, we covered the cost of media. We really wanted this to be a true collaborative, kind of co-created event. We also included industry partners. I'll get into listing those out and you'll see pictures of them throughout this, but you'll see we had members of our tribal community, thanks to Lisa Edel and her partnership there to make that happen. We had our Oregon Wine Board and winemakers, Sport Oregon, and then sprinkled throughout the event, there were Oregon Film Trail signage. So we really wanted, again, to bring a lot of folks together for this. And because we were bringing in media from across the country and out of country, we wanted to have press trips for them to go on post event, or there was one pre-event as well. And then finally, in years past, again, it was more of like a meetup type event, not really a themed effort, but in order for it to come together and us to be able to plan together, we had an overarching theme of wellness, to at least have the space be a kind of cohesive feel and lean into one of our strengths as a state and tourism offering. So that's sort of how it started, and then year 3 we really took it to a whole new level. If you go to the next slide, I'll get into a little bit of who was there. I'm waiting for the slide to show up on my end. There we go. So who attended? We had just over 60 media total, which is, I believe, about 40 more than in years past. So 10 domestic, 12 international. But we did invite a lot of the local media. And again, that's not just media writing for local outlets. It's local media who are often, they write for the local outlets, but they're often freelancing for national publications or even regional, like Northwest travel magazines or Northwest centric publications. And then we did have 9 influencers that were Portland based, but have a national, in some cases, international reach. And then we had 116 different partners. And so when you think about an event geared toward the media, we really wanted to give them a representation of our entire state and an opportunity to meet with all the RDMOs, DMOs, guides, experience providers, different industry partners, so that they could have those meaningful conversations while they were in the room. If you go to the next slide, that was really kind of the objective of the space and how we activated. was to make it more conversational and welcoming, just like Oregon. So we had all 7 regions, like I said, 7 regions, local partners in these spaces where people could come in and they could sit down. It was a 5-hour long event, so it ran from 3 to 8 p.m. And it really gave way to have the media be able to sit down with not just the PR person, but somebody who led a guided trip, or a winemaker, or somebody else who could really talk to those experiences that we have to offer. I said this at the top of the presentation, but we worked with the Sport Oregon to have a sports lounge where people could go and get like player cards made, and they had really fun giveaways, and had a couple of the mascots join us, like the Portland Pickles rep or mascot. And then we had the Oregon Wine Board activated a wine lounge, and they brought winemakers with them as well. We had Oregon Indian Country with all of, not all of our tribal partners, but we had quite a few tribal partners represented there. And then we had just kind of last minute special guests. People heard about the event and they were like, we want to be there. So we had some alpacas come, and you'll see a photo of them at the very end of this. But Tualatin Valley brought some alpacas. Portland Pickles mascot showed up. And then we had Royal Rosarians, who are Portland's official greeters. They were there throughout the event for the first couple hours, and did a great job welcoming people to Portland. If you go to the next slide, in addition to those more conversational spaces with all 7 different regions, and then the lounges on either end, we also, the red is a really long, narrow space. And on either end, we had some really great kind of deeper dive type content. On the far north end, we had the stage you see in the photo, the first photo there, and that we had a couple different panel discussions there. And then the red has a really beautiful open kitchen space with seating around it. So we had to make use of that with all of our culinary offerings. And we invited Chef Jack Strong with the Allison Inn to do a cooking demo and highlight some of the native foods that he's cooking with. He's a member of the Siletz tribe. He's highlighted his new chef's menu that he's brought to the Allison Inn there. And then with the 2 panels, we really wanted to give, like I said, media, you know, people learn in different ways and engage in different ways. So they had those conversational spaces throughout, and then they had these panel discussions where they could sit and listen and ask questions that way. But the 2 panels we leaned into were many ways to wellness. So really wanted to show, you know, all that is wellness, and it is spas, and it is some of our beautiful lodging. And we had a representative on the panel talking about that, but it's also nature, and it's also our parks, and it's also our art and our culture and our communities. So we wanted to be able to touch on all that Oregon offers in that space on that panel there. And then our second panel was called Rooted in Oregon, and it was really a deeper dive into our culinary offerings and some of the more innovative leading culinary things, like, you know, Oregon's a leader in biodynamic wines. Stat that once I heard it, I can't get it out of my head, is that we only produce about 2% of the state's wines, but we make about just over 50% of the organic and biodynamic wines. So really big leader in that for the wine industry. And I think it says a lot about our ethos as a state. We had Alana Kiefer from Shifting Tides, who talked about seaweed foraging and some of the seafood, coastal seafood efforts happening. We had Jessica Elkan with the James Beard Public Market previewing kind of their long anticipated opening here. I think it's now summer of 2026 is what I saw in an email today, actually. And then Lane Selman with the Culinary Breeding Network, who moderated the panel. So just, again, we really wanted to make it not over program things, keep it conversational, but give media an opportunity to engage and learn in a lot of different ways. So if you go to the next slide, please. I could sit here and tell you how awesome the event was all day, but I figured I'd share just a couple slides of feedback we got specifically on the event, and then I'll get to press trips next. But I'll read these two quotes if they're hard for you to see. Says the first one here says, "I have attended many events like OMM. However, this was in a league of its own." Oh, thank you for making that bigger. I loved meeting all the incredible people and learning their stories and the generosity of everyone. The day really fed into my overall article on Oregon. That was from a writer with the Belfast Telegraph who has already printed his story, and you'll see that linked at the end of the presentation. And then from Australia, a writer that we hosted, she said, "I enjoyed the ample FaceTime with operators and producers, the fairly free-flowing format, allowing you to roam and chat was more enjoyable and productive than the speed date format of some other media marketplaces. I soaked up more information this way, and the panels added plenty of value to just the right balance." So that, I mean, we actually received quite a bit of positive feedback. Those two jumped out at me because they really underlined the intention of the event. We really wanted it to be free-flowing and engaging and conversational and go a little bit deeper than those kind of 15-minute media appointments that I'm about to jump into at IPW. And then if you go to the next slide, also important is partner feedback, right? So this was an event for the media, but wouldn't have happened without our partners. And so just a couple quotes from them. The Oregon Coast Visitors Association shared, it really helped us in making connections with new potential partners and having in-person conversations with existing contacts. We were able to share new and exciting story ideas from our region with writers who were interested and engaged. Overall, the experience was very positive for our team and helped us advance our regional comms goals. We definitely enjoy participating in a similar event in the future. And then Sport Oregon said, I loved how interactive and immersive the booths felt. Rather than walking up to a table, the booths really invited you in. So again, that kind of opening, welcoming, conversational space was what we were aiming for, and I think we achieved it in spades. And then just to round out the recap, if you go to the next slide, I'll touch briefly on the press trips portion. So we did host about 60 media plus partners in that day-long event on March 18th at the Red. And then for the media that we flew in out of state or out of country, we invited them to join us on press trips so that they could stay a little longer, see more of our state. So we had 4 group press trips that when someone signed up for the event, they could select which press trip they wanted to go on based on the regions. We went to all 7 regions. That was a big priority of mine. We're bringing in a lot of folks, and we want to make sure they have an opportunity to go and see every corner of our state, or at least every region within our state. And then we had a couple single market press trips, one before OMM for our UK, Ireland folks, and then one after OMM for our, we had a couple writers from France and our contractor from France as well. So if you go to the next slide, we had 22 total participants go on these press trips all throughout the state. And again, I can't underline enough how important it was to get regional involvement in this very early on. Just even as we were shopping the idea of making it bigger, people were excited about it. And then they also helped co-create these press trips. So the press trips were co-developed, covered at least 2 regions per trip. Folks were in region for 3 to 4 nights per trip. We flew most of the media that came in, I think all came in through Portland, but because they were going to all different parts of the state, we were able to use our regional airports as well. So we flew out of Medford and Redmond. And then again, we used that wellness theme to try and narrow down what all we took them to, because as you all know, the state's amazing and we have a lot of opportunities or a lot of things to showcase here. And so we use that overarching wellness theme to guide the types of experiences that they had while they were out and about in the different regions. And I now have a new thing to add to my bucket list, which is the sound bath in the lava tube cave at Juniper Preserve. It sounds pretty incredible, and we got some good feedback on that as well. So if you go to the next slide, please. Just a quick slide providing some feedback. Again, in the vein of always tweaking and improving, we've done surveys to the media for the event and partners for the event and press trips. And these two quotes is what we pulled for the press trip specifically. I was extremely satisfied with everything. We were taken care of in such a warm and professional way, and everything went incredibly smoothly throughout the trip. What I especially appreciated was that our guide and the Travel Oregon host had deep knowledge about each location we visited. They always had an answer to every question. Truly impressive and really well done. And then simply, this was one of the best hosted media experiences I've had to date. So 2 really great quotes that you can hang your hat on and feel good about. And, you know, the best experience they've ever had, that's a great one. But that when I read these and just hearing that they felt taken care of in a warm and professional way, like that is our brand, that is who we are. And it just, I love that that's how they felt while they were here. And then next slide, some of the results. So as I mentioned, all of this was done to build relationships, deepen relationships, but really ultimately inspire stories and get us in the news and about, you know, getting people excited to come to Oregon. So what we've gotten so far, we've just got 63 stories from those 60 plus media that were here. And if you look on the right, you'll see just the breakdown, the local, regional, and then national and international. And then specifically, we have a breakdown of regional coverage. And I'll just note here that, you know, the pie chart is not showing all regions getting equitable coverage. We had a lot of people who were in the kind of the local 30 local media who were have written a lot of stories about, you know, stories that maybe they didn't get out to the press trips and they didn't get out to see that, but they were able to experience that at the OMM and be inspired by what was showcased there. And more are coming, and more are coming. So if you go to the next slide, I can touch on that. Well, I'll highlight some of the big ones that we've gotten so far, and then I'll talk about more coming. So here's some of the domestic media that have come. And one thing, I'll just kind of circle back to the conversation of AI that's come up the last presentation, and then Katie, or last commission meeting, and then Katie's presentation just a few minutes ago. You know, one of the things that we're on the comm side really leaning into is we have a role to play in those AI overviews. Yes, on our own content, but in the content that is getting out there from folks like MSN and World Atlas. Those carry a lot of weight when it comes to SEO and what those AI overviews are using. And so, you know, it may seem a little obscure. It's not like a travel and leisure, but a World Atlas carries a lot of SEO weight. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to showcase that in our top US stories. If you go to the next slide, I've got a rundown of some of the top international stories so far. I love kind of the breakdown or the variety of language that you'll see, maybe you can see on the screen. We've got, I think, 3 different languages here. And then going to the final slide, what's in the works. So as I mentioned earlier, there's more coming. We've gotten 63 stories, which is great, but there are many more in the works. You can read through this on the screen. The other thing I'll say is I just got an email earlier today from a writer who is at OMM and has a confirmed story in Afar that's coming out in August. Afar is a huge win for us. And it's I think a great story because it blends all of our things together. It's outdoor rec, it's wellness, it's highlighting the removal of the dams on the Klamath River and some of the guided trips that are able to happen in that area, and just the restoration win. It's like touches on all of the strategies that we really want to touch on in our communications work. That story is bringing them all to life. So, so more to come. We've got really great placements already, but there are more in the works. And as I'm sure you all know, this is a long lead type of environment. And we're hoping to see the results of this for up to a year or more. And I believe that's it. Oh, no, what learnings. I couldn't end the presentation without sharing some room for improvement. So, as Lucinda mentioned, you know, Travel Oregon's a place where we're always looking to tweak and refine and grow and do it better. And this was definitely a successful event for us, and we're really happy with it. But in those surveys that we did get a little feedback on possibly a shorter activation event. So it was from 3 to 8, 5 hours. And there was maybe in the like later 6, 7 o'clock time frame, people were feeling like it was time to move on, but the cooking demonstration hadn't happened yet and they wanted to stick around for that. So it's a balance, right? We wanted to give people time to engage in conversation and have those more like sit down conversational type meetings, but we might shorten the event for next time. They also said they wanted more time in one region, so we wanted to get folks out to all 7 regions, and because of that, you know, each of those press trips were about 2 to 3 regions per trip. So at 3 to 4 nights, you're hopping around quite a bit. We did actually spend a lot of time in Oregon's small towns and main streets. They wanted to do more of that. They thought it was some of the best parts of the trips were spending time in kind of off the beaten path or smaller towns across the state. It was in March. It's always a hit or miss in terms of weather. So it allowed for some of our media to go skiing and snowshoeing and have some really great winter activities. But then folks who went out on the coast got just dumped on. They were like rained and rained and rained. So you can't win. It's Oregon. It's part of the story, I guess. But you know, thinking of the timing, it's maybe later March or even April could give us a little bit more favorable weather conditions. And then some of the feedback we got from our partners, again, we really started planning this event pretty much as soon as I joined just over a year ago. But the partners really would appreciate kind of more hard costs associated. They couldn't necessarily plan for their booth activation or their space activation until we had the hard costs figured out for them. So now that we've done it this way, we've set up this model, I think getting to that in years ahead will be much easier. And yeah, that alpaca, you got to see the alpaca that was there and the rosarians. So that is all I had. I am happy to take questions if you have them.
Thanks so much, Julia. Commissioners, questions? David, you were there. Any reflections as well as your question?
No. I just a great presentation. And I'm so thrilled that you included all 7 regions. And I think that's so important that we continue with that. I'm just curious, in the Portland area, I've heard of this wine spa. Did anyone inquire about the wine spa? And 'cause it's gotten a lot of media attention recently.
Yeah, I believe she came, the owner of the wine spa joined us at OMM, but we did not have a press trip planned or a visit planned for her space, but we've since made that connection, and we'll definitely keep her top of mind for future ones.
Okay, just curious, as I look into the audience here at Petra, she's got this smile on, so I can tell you all about it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Those are 2 of her
Julia.
favorite words.
Julia, I wanted to thank you for the presentation. Really impressed.
Greg, did you have a
and
comment or a question?
David echoed.
I don't think a whole lot of
So happy that all regions were included. A biennial program it is, and this time, you know, in our national history, and I think we're feeling it in Oregon, it's more important to get those positive impressions out internationally and outside of state borders into other states and bringing visitors into Oregon. Has there been any discussion about moving this to an annual event? It seems like such a positive event, increasing outreach, increasing interest, and a real time that all regions in Oregon need that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we have not talked about it, to directly answer your question. We have not talked about making it an annual thing. I think it's a heavy lift
Yes.
and it's expensive. So I think, you know, in terms of time and resources, time is a resource, but in terms of the resources it takes to put that together, I think yearly would be tough. The other thing that a biannual event allows us to do is you make these media connections, and then you're kind of working, like folks might have a story right away, like a lot of them did. They had stories right away, but then they saw something that inspired them for another story. And so having it on a 2-year basis allows them to, you know, write the story right away, but then pitch their editor for, you know, the fall issue or the spring issue. And so media is such a long lead game that it really works on a 2-year basis. That said, we are, you know, just like Katie talked about, you know, kind of reworking how they're doing their work. We're reworking how we're doing our work. You know, we're working hand in hand with regions more and more on press trips and trying to make our dollars go as far as they can go in terms of like, hey, are you know what events you have in market, you know who media you're targeting. Let's work together, make sure, you know, if we're targeting the same people, maybe we can bring them in town around the same time. So I think there's a lot of room for more collaboration, I guess, across the state in terms of PR partners working together to bring media in. And we might get sort of that middle ground of instead of doing that on a yearly basis, we can keep working together and then keep the OMM on a biannual basis. We might have to hire another person to do it on a yearly basis.
Great work, great presentation.
Thank you so much.
David, I just wanted to do a real quick acknowledge your question because I think it's a good one. You go to an event like OMM, and when it wraps up, you're like, I can't wait to do this again because it's so powerful and it's so impactful. But Julia's right; it's also exhausting. And it's not just about being the Travel Oregon team. I mean, we're asking a lot of our partners that are coming to Oregon from around the state, and it's not only them, but they're bringing their partners with them. And so there is that big lift. I guess if I were to equate it to something, I would actually, as Julia just did, go back to Katie's presentation where she talked about you've got the brand campaign, you've got the always on effort. And OMM is a little bit, you know, like our brand campaign. And then the work that Julia and Elena and Allison are doing in conversations with the media, attending IPW, doing the outreach to media domestically and internationally, inviting them in for press trips all the time, just on an ongoing basis tied to themes. And obviously working closely with Greg and Lorna and Thomas and Rose on the global sales team as well in that regard. And that's kind of that always on effort that then builds from that OMM effort. But it's a great question, David. I appreciate you bringing it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the further explanation. And again, thank you all for the work that's being done to increasing awareness about Oregon and its regions. So thank you.
Greg, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah. Julia, thanks so much for this presentation with everything else you have going on. Remoting in is pretty special. I thought we were going to get to see the display board behind you on the first grade presentation there.
Would you like to? I can show you.
Oh, real quick. Yeah, heck yeah.
This is my other job is PTA.
Okay, got it. Great.
So I'm the communications chair.
We're looking for innovation. Yeah, we're looking
So-
for innovation on presentations. I think that might be a blast from the past. You said two great things. One, I really appreciate involving all 7 regions in this this event. I think man, Oregon has so many unique spots, and when you hit on individuals wanting more time in small towns or backwoods or secret extra special spots, Oregon has them, and they're everywhere. So thank you for including those 7. And then you hit on the AI crawling and getting you that information, and Google doing it as well. And you, I think, alluded MSN. You kind of circumnavigates that. It gets to the front of the line when when Google's crawling the web for answers to things. And thank you for that innovation. That's pretty great to know as well. We can play with AI or fight against it and become dinosaurs. So thank you for that innovation.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? David?
One last question.
Sure.
You mentioned IPW is coming up. Is there any one planned after IPW to come to Oregon or not?
For IPW
Media?
to come to work?
For media?
No, IPW is in Chicago, but just
Right.
after IPW.
Oh, are there any
Are there any plans for post-media visits to Oregon?
So the next big group press trip, that's the other thing that has shifted a bit in our strategy since I've joined, is we've tried to always have something on the horizon. So when we go to these events, we're like, pitching in market, and then have something for them to look forward to. The next group press trip is centered around accessibility and travelability, the Travelability Conference in Sun River in October. So it will be a little bit more niche in terms of the media that we're inviting for that. So that's our next big press trip. The other thing that we're shifting toward, again, just to make our dollars go as far as possible, is we're working with PR partners across the state, not just the RDMO PR partners, but we're so lucky to have so many different agencies, whether they're small boutique or bigger PR agencies here in Portland or in Oregon, that represent a lot of different lodging partners, guides, wineries. Again, that whole Oregon story that we're often trying to tell in our press trips. What I'm trying to do is build like this PR collective and work to identify areas where Travel Oregon can make a smaller investment to make many of those group press trips that they're leading go farther. So travelability, to answer your question, David, travelability is the next, and that accessibility press trip is the next big group one that we're owning and that we're planning, but we're actually in the works of creating this collective where we can figure out which specific levers to pull or which specific press trips to offer all throughout the state in collaboration with partners. So I guess, again, to follow through on Todd's analogy of like the always on and brand campaign, that like always on behind the scenes matrix of press trips and stuff is a complicated one to navigate. But I do think with those open lines of communications with partners, we're going to be able to bring more media here in ways of, and get them all across the state without having to sink all of our resources into, 2 or 3 press trips, group press trips throughout the year. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
or give you a
I
little bit
actually
more
love your,
insight? Okay.
yeah, I love your response. The collective piece makes sense to me, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any other?
Hi, Petra.
Smile, Petra. Any other questions or comments?
Julia, thank you so much for the presentation today. It was incredibly informative, as always. You talked about 63 stories to date, and I know this is the long game, but if you had a crystal ball, how many stories do you think we would expect from this endeavor?
Well, I know we have at least 15 more in the works right now. So I'm going to say I don't know, like upwards of 100 over the next 2 years, right? So like you bring all these people in, and what I was explaining earlier to David is, you know, people are inspired to write right now and come here for the story that they got picked up by an editor, or, you know, pitched to any of the publications they write for, but they often leave with like 4 or 5 different story ideas. So I think I'll keep tabs on it. I'll ask our PR agency to keep following, and but my guess is over a 2-year period, we could see 100 stories from that many media coming into town at once.
Great. And I think 63 is impressive. When I was the director of marketing at my property, the team always said, this is going to take time, Lucinda. Do not expect instant results. So it takes time to build those relationships for people truly to understand Oregon. So congratulations to you and the entire team. 63 since a March visit is incredibly impressive. So well done, you.
Thanks, Lucinda.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time, Scott?
I just have to say that, Julia, I mean, I realize the lift. I understand the amount of work and the number of hands and the collaboration that went into it. But as somebody who got to be in the room at the Red and observing, maybe to your own ultimate detriment, you make it look easy.
Yeah.
And the fact that it looked and felt effortless and relaxed to the participants, to even the industry partners that got to come in a very organized manner and load in and set up and participate. And it's a testament to your collaboration. And maybe, Katie, this is equally true of your team. And everybody here in both for Travel Oregon and in our DMO space, the fact that you make it look easy is both a testament to your cooperation and your remarkable professionalism, and it also brings its own burden of people looking at it, even people like me who say, wow, that looked easy. Tourism is easy. Tourism takes care of itself in Oregon. And of course, we all know that that couldn't be further from the truth. But for everything that you do, for everything that all of you in this room do to make the work of managing and marketing this place as a destination, to uplift our economies, to help distribute travelers, to pay respect to high travel markets that need to spread out their destination season, as well as those folks who need support throughout the year. Thanks for making it look easy, but more importantly, thanks for all the hard work that all of you put into it.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Any
Maybe
other?
a testament to the team. I mean, I know you're speaking about everybody at Travel Oregon, but specifically for OMM, we had a rock solid team, and everybody had a lane and they stayed in it, but came together when we needed to. It was like magic. It was awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments at this time from the commission? If not, Julia, thank you. Nice job. Chair DeNovo, that wraps up our briefings for this afternoon. I'll turn the agenda back over to you.
Great. That concludes, as Todd just said, our staff presentation. So are there any additional business or announcements from the commission? With that said, I will adjourn this meeting, and we will be back here at the Fish Trap tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Hi, David. Good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.